Welcome back to Child's Play. Karen was right, and Norris ends up going back to the police station to look up some info on Charles Lee Ray with the intention of taking it home with him. Yeah, never get into a car alone when you're in a horror movie.
Good night, asshole!
Yay, the Chucky Laugh is back. Norris does something kind of clever and reaches for the cigarette lighter. I love how Deadpool ends up doing something similar nearly 3 decades later, only way more brutal.
I've never said this, but don't swallow.
Love the movie, but Wow, that's a long knife. And everyone watching just crossed their legs. It's actually a miracle that no one ended up getting run over. Fun fact though, apparently 2 cameras got taken out while this was being filmed. Chucky even gets under the seat and pushes on the accelerator. Yeah, this crash was pretty much inevitable.
Hi, Mikey!
Naturally, Chucky is fine, probably tucked himself under the seat or something so he didn't get thrown around too much during the flip.
Won't do you any good, Mikey! You can't hurt me!
Also, Chucky's personality starts coming through in this scene. And I love how he takes advantage of his small size. First he was able to get under the car seat, and now he's able to run around the car easily, where Mike is trapped, at least for the moment. Look at that tiny plastic hand. And then big blue eyes. Not exactly stealthy there, Chucky. I guess he thought he could startle Mike and he would falter and not react so quickly. Anyway, Chucky is finally hurt, so he runs off. The next morning, Karen has made it to where Charles Lee Ray lived. And check out all this weird shit. I like the table made out of mannequin legs, not to mention this weird sculpture that's also made out of mannequin parts. Maybe that's a little hint that he had an obsession with dolls. Not to mention all these paintings on the wall showing some kind of ritual sacrifice. Also, this is kind of neat. This symbol on the wall is very similar to the symbol for Damballa, a Haitian voodoo god who is the creator of all life. If you pay attention to the chants he does throughout the series of movies, even if they change a little at times, he always evokes Damballa. And of course, here's a more blatant mention of Damballa. Like, I'm sure 90% of this is bullshit, but I think it's cool that they at least reference names and symbols and such, so at least bits of it are accurate. Though someone who practices that religion probably wouldn't appreciate it being appropriated like that. Also, I guess all this means that Chucky is or was artistically inclined. I guess it's a career he could have fallen back on if that whole serial killer thing hadn't worked out.
Karen.
Yeah, it's just Mike.
I decided to go back to the station and pull Ray's file. I learned a couple of things. His nickname was Chucky.
It's nitpicky, but that always bothered me a little. What grown-ass man, not to mention a serial killer, calls himself Chucky? Could have at least went with Chuck. I feel like they threw that in because they thought we wouldn't know that Chucky is a common nickname for Charles, and we'd be confused if anyone called Chucky by that name.
And he spent a lot of time with this man.
Anyway, they know where to go next.
Now what we have to do is find him before Chucky does.
Too late.
Hello, John.
Chucky pays his old voodoo instructor a little visit, and his personality really comes through in this scene.
What do you think? The gree work?
He's like, yep, I'd say so. Chucky mentions that he didn't think he could get hurt, but when he got shot...
It hurt like a son of a bitch, it even bled. Why's that, John?
You're turning human.
What?
Oh, that surprised look on his face kills me. It's just so cute.
The more time you spend in that body, the more human you become.
You mean I have to live out the rest of my life in this body? No fucking way! You got me into this, you get me out.
You might notice that, unlike in all of the sequels, this one has Chucky going through a physical transformation. His hair has gotten darker, he now has real eyebrows and eyelashes instead of the painted-on ones that good guy dolls have. And his eyes, instead of that glassy, solid blue, are now more translucent and organic looking. He basically looks more and more like Brad Dourif as time goes on.
You're an abomination. You perverted everything I've taught you and used it for evil, and you have to be stopped.
I appreciate how this actor puts everything he has into this performance, but that's kind of a weird thing to say. Like, you taught a serial killer how to gain immortality. What the fuck did you think was gonna happen? Then again, the movie isn't very clear on the timeline of all this. Maybe Chucky didn't become corrupt until afterwards, or maybe John didn't specifically teach him how to achieve immortality. Maybe he just got him started on that voodoo stuff. Like any religion, it's not inherently good or bad, it's all about how you interpret what you learn, and maybe Chucky learned about that specific aspect on his own. Technically, the scene isn't very good and feels kind of thrown in since it's like 90% exposition. But it's also the scene where the Chucky effects really get to shine and all of his personality comes through. So it's kind of a trade-off. Chucky himself is so hypnotic you almost don't notice that other stuff. It's still a great Chucky scene, if that makes sense. In any case...
I thought something like this might happen. That's why I prepared for it. Your own personal mojo, Doc.
This is a very weird murder sequence. Yeah, I'm pretty sure voodoo dolls aren't supposed to work that way. God forbid John accidentally drop it at some point. Probably every bone in his body would shatter. Points for creativity, I guess. Normally you'd see someone stick pins in the doll.
Teach me to throw away my comic books.
Shouldn't tell your customers where you hide things like this, John.
Yeah, why did he do that?
Now how do I get out of this body?
I won't tell you.
Yeah?
Yeah, weird as this is, that does look and sound painful as hell.
Your choice.
So here's the purpose of including this character. We're about to learn the rules.
You have to transfer your soul out of the doll into that of the first human being you revealed your true self to.
I swear to God, that laugh is the best thing ever.
First person I let in on my little secret was a 6-year-old kid.
Here comes everyone's favorite line to take out of context.
I gotta go. I have a date with a 6-year-old boy. And you have a date with death.
Poor John. Then again, if you think about it, he's basically responsible for everything that happens in this series, so... yeah, no, fuck him. Mike and Karen do at least show up in time to get some information. John tells her that Chucky is going to put his soul in Andy's body.
You must stop him before he can say the chant.
Along with the rest of the rules.
His heart is almost human. It's the only way through the heart.
Meanwhile, poor Andy is in a cell, and across the way he sees Chucky entering the building.
Help me! He's coming to kill me! He's here! Chucky's here!
I don't see anybody.
Maybe try looking out the window, dumb shit. He didn't say Chucky was literally in the room with him. Also, maybe leaving Andy alone isn't the best idea right now.
But Chucky is here! Then he's going to kill me!
I don't know what they did to this kid to get this performance out of him, but it was definitely effective. I can't not cry during this scene. Oh. Back to Chucky, he figures out where Andy's room is, and oh look, the keys are right on the table. Teeny plastic hand again. Wow, Chucky, you fell for the oldest trick in the book. I swear I've never noticed this before, but he has a band-aid covering the wound, but over his shirt, kind of like Leon Kennedy. Way to go, Andy, though. Andy makes a good attempt to get away, but... damn, Chucky is fast. You know, Andy is only 6, so naturally he makes a lot of mistakes, but I appreciate that they gave him some autonomy. He's not just some stereotypical helpless child victim that sits around waiting to be rescued. He runs and fights back whenever he can, especially now when he knows he's on his own. No one believes that he's in danger, so he has to protect himself. He looks like an adorable little badass wielding that scalpel. Well, so much for that. Like I said, he's 6. And unlike Chucky, his strength matches his size.
Chucky's in the room and
No.
he's trying to kill me!
No.
I don't know how I feel about this doctor. I think he has good intentions, but it's weird that he left Andy alone without trying to comfort or reason with him, and instead he's just gonna shoot him up with drugs. I'm not an expert, obviously, but I'm gonna say that he's probably not a very good child psychologist. That scalpel isn't gonna go to waste. Ah! Ouch. Okay, I know electroshock therapy is a thing, but I'm pretty sure that's not how it works. That's pretty twisted, Chucky, even for you. Made all the more worse because a child is witnessing it. Speaking of which, pretty sure Andy is gonna need a whole lot of real therapy after all this is over. Mike and Karen get there sometime after the fact. Let's take a moment to appreciate how run down this mental institution looks. Apparently it was filmed at a real one that had been closed down sometime in the 50s. Explains why their doctors suck, I guess.
Kid's doll, the same one that was at the station house. Have you seen him anywhere? What am I gonna know about a doll? Where are you going?
Anyway, another kid saw part of what happened. Once again, go Andy. He makes it home and barricades the door.
Look, George. Some child left their doll in the elevator.
Meanwhile, Chucky is looking even more human, down to the receding hairline.
Ugly doll.
Fuck you.
Oh, Chucky. From what I gather, that line was ad-libbed. Oh crap, Halloween flashbacks. Get a wire hanger ready. A baseball bat works too. I'm telling you, this is one badass little kid. However, Chucky ends up coming down the chimney. He didn't bring any gifts though. Well, except for his murderous intent. And that really cool-looking ritualistic dagger. Meanwhile, Andy's not waiting in the closet. He's looking to kick some possessed doll ass. Okay, that didn't work out so well, but I'm not kidding when I say that I appreciate this kid's moxie. I get what he's trying to do here. He's trying to repeat what he did in the hospital, where he keeps an eye on all the entrances while backing up against the wall so that he can't get attacked from behind. But it's a big room and he doesn't move fast enough. And Chucky is as stealthy as a cat. And here come these two again. They're always a step behind. Meanwhile, the chant is different this time. I think he just said Santeria, which is a kind of West African religion that involves animal sacrifice. They probably added that in because they thought it sounded cool, unless I misheard it. If the chant is a specific language and not just made up words, I would love it if someone translated it. I thought it might be Haitian Creole since Damballa is a Haitian deity and some of it sounds French, but Google Translate didn't come up with anything. French came up with a few words, but it didn't make any sense in context. I don't think Chucky is chanting about haberdashery and dead peas. I mean, I accepted a long time ago that it's most likely gibberish, but it'd be cool if it turned out to have some kind of meaning.
Give me the power, I beg of you!
Now the storm clouds and the lightning from the opening scene returns. This time Karen and Mike get there just in time. Chucky's strength doesn't equal his size, but his weight seems to. He didn't appreciate that and counters with a slash to the back of the leg.
Let's take your Andy.
Mike goes off on his own, but leaves Karen with a gun. Yeah, maybe don't turn your back to the door, dumbass. Even Andy knew better than that. Karen to the rescue, and damn, that bullet went all the way through his leg. Unfortunately, the gun jams and she and Chucky get into another tussle, which ends with her throwing him into the fireplace. Yeah, she wasn't kidding earlier.
I'm gonna throw you in the fire!
Poor Andy is obviously in shock. Your mom could kind of use your help here, kiddo. He does finally snap out of it, but this is interesting.
Andy, no, please.
We don't get to witness Chucky pretending to be his friend earlier, but we get a little taste of it here.
We're friends to the end, remember?
This is the end, friend.
Andy is metal as fuck. Time to set the little stunt double on fire. I know I shouldn't feel bad for Chucky, but damn, he takes a long time to die. I guess it's not really sympathy so much as a general feeling of horror. Being burned alive must be the worst way to go. Meanwhile, Mike wakes up.
What happened?
Oh, God. Chucky's dead.
With 11 minutes left in this movie, I don't think so. She has Andy go to the kitchen to get a first aid kit for Mike, and he notices something.
Mommy, Chucky's gone.
Yeah, I know he should have said that louder, but again, poor kid's in shock. Give him a break.
Hello, Andy.
You think a little thing like immolation is gonna slow Chucky down? By the way, apparently the idea of having Chucky get burned almost down to his skeleton but still going is inspired by the Terminator. Seems obvious now that I know about it, but I never thought about it before, probably because they don't look that much alike.
Give me the boy and I'll let you live!
Damn, he's so desperate now, he's done with the snark. He's ready to negotiate. No wonder that door won't stay closed. It doesn't have a latch. Never noticed that before.
Mommy!
This is probably the most intense scene in the movie. It also feels like it might be inspired by The Shining. She's lucky he stopped where he did. How many doors are there to this room? I'm not sure when she got this other gun and why she didn't use it before, but here we go. Damn, the Energizer Bunny's got nothing on this toy. Karen's aim is so bad she could join the stormtroopers. I could see not hitting the heart exactly from a distance, but his torso is the biggest target, and she's getting pretty much everything else. That said, he is incapacitated, so it should be easier to get now. When you just can't shoot something enough times.
What the hell's going on here? Oh, hey!
There's Mike's partner. God, I hate this guy. He does at least call for help, but of course he doesn't believe Mike's story.
All right, well, go on. Check it out in the hall. But don't touch it. Do you understand me? Don't you touch one part of it!
You know he's just gonna go and touch all of it. See? I swear, everything is a punchline with this guy.
Okay, Mike. I'd like you to take a look at this thing, okay? Because there's no way this thing's alive.
He's like Michael Scott from season 1, before they softened him up a little and made him likable.
It's as dead as they come. It's dead.
I'm with Chucky. Kill that guy.
Kill him! Kill him now!
I love that Chucky is so far gone that his head is talking to his own body. It's so creepy and weird.
Kill him! Kill him!
Mike finally shoots Chucky in the damn heart. Chucky deserves an Oscar for this death scene.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Beautiful.
You believe me now?
Yeah. But who's gonna believe me?
Nobody, because you're gonna lie about it, asshole. I love this ending. Andy takes one last look at Chucky's corpse, almost like he's afraid to let it out of his sight.
Andy, come on.
First time I saw this movie, I wondered what this meant. Is he just traumatized, or is something wrong with him? Like, maybe the chant actually did something and part of his mind is taken over? If there's a sequel, maybe Andy will be the killer? Nah, but that was child's play. I love this movie. I think maybe even more than I used to now that I'm trying to appreciate it on its own merits instead of comparing it to its sequel. Like I've said before, Child's Play 2 is one of my favorite horror movies overall. Yeah, this movie plays fast and loose with realism at times, and that whole bit with the voodoo doll is kind of silly, but for the most part, it's a pretty solid late 80s horror movie that created a unique and memorable horror icon. By the way, in the original script, the Buddy doll could actually bleed fake blood, and people would have to buy special Buddy brand Band-Aids for it. Try saying that 3 times fast. Part of that was because Don Mancini wanted to have some commentary on the toy industry and how it targets kids. The voodoo serial killer angle didn't come in until much later in the writing process. Originally, Buddy came to life when he and the kid both had a cut, and the kid had them becoming, well, blood buddies. Title drop. The doll was meant to represent the kid's id and would specifically go after anyone who mistreated him, and it was less obvious which one of them was actually committing the murders. In the end, they thought the kid should be a lot more sympathetic, which was for the best. Also, I think that whole bleeding angle is kind of weird for a child's toy. I know we have dolls that pee, but a doll that bleeds... Come to think of it, there was a joke about that in Child's Play 2. Anyway, I just don't see parents wanting to get that for their kids. It's a little too grisly. What's kind of neat about the Good Guy dolls is that they look like they could be a real franchise. Yeah, it's syrupy as hell, but no worse than Care Bears. In fact, the movie in general has a very naturalistic setting, which helps to ground everything in reality. Later movies are going to get stranger and more stylized visually to suit Chucky better. Speaking of which, he was named after 3 famous killers: Charles Manson, Lee Harvey Oswald, and James Earl Ray. Notice that 2 of them have 3 names, so they wanted to go with that. Charles Lee Ray just sounds like the name of a killer. But yeah, I love everything about Chucky. I feel like anyone who criticizes these movies on the basis of like, how is a little doll supposed to be a threat, hasn't actually watched them and is just basing that off the general concept. Chucky is all about sabotage. He can hide in plain sight and plan these elaborate murders. And when he suddenly comes to life, it catches people off guard. He's fast, he can get into small places. If anything, his size is an advantage way more often than a hindrance. That said, I do still think he's a lot stronger than he looks. He isn't a small robot that is limited to tiny servo motors. He has the soul of a grown man inside of him, which is a weird, mystical thing and can mean anything, including that he retained the physical strength he had in his old body. And he uses that to his advantage as well. And aesthetically, I just love how adorable he looks. Again, he looks like a cute toy meant for children where the designers knew what they were doing. I love the wild red hair and the big blue eyes. Again, I also love how his appearance clashes with his actions and personality. Speaking of which, Child's Play wasn't the first killer toy story by a long shot, but it was the first I ever saw where the toy in question had this much personality. In fact, he had so much personality, I didn't know how to deal with it and wasn't sure I liked this movie when I first saw it. It just seemed so weird and random. It wasn't until I heard about Child's Play 2 being made through Fangoria that I gave this movie another shot and went, okay, this character is gold. And of course, Brad Dourif has a lot to do with that. As much credit as everyone else involved in Chucky's creation deserves, I don't think he'd be half as iconic without that voice. And speaking of everyone who deserves credit for Chucky, let's not forget Edie Gayle, the little person who is basically the stunt double. They basically used him whenever they needed to show Chucky walking around and doing things that the animatronics couldn't do. I do tend to prefer the look of the later movies where the technology improved to the point that they didn't need a little person, but I feel like I should give this guy his dues, along with the crew for making it work as well as they did. He's actually about the same height that Alex Vincent was at the time, 30% larger than the Chucky doll. So for his scenes, they actually built sets that were 30% larger to film him in, to compensate for that. He also tried to mimic the jerkiness of the movements of the animatronics so it would at least look consistent if not natural. Also, he let them set him on fire. So yeah, he's awesome. Really though, everyone was great in this. Catherine Hicks and Chris Sarandon were both amazing, and even though the movie doesn't ship them by any stretch, they have good chemistry. Not to mention her and Alex Vincent. It's hard to believe that Catherine Hicks wasn't a mother at the time and had a hard time relating to him in the beginning. Speaking of which, I'm just gonna say it. I think Alex Vincent was pretty damn good in this too, for the most part. Yeah, his performance was a little hit or miss at times, but the hits are wonderful. I mean, he was 7 years old and it was his first movie, cut him some slack. I think if he'd stuck with it, he could have had a great career. But we'll get back to him in a later video. These movies also made me a fan of Kevin Yeager, who did the animatronics for the first 4 movies, along with the Crypt Keeper. He has the same eyes as Chucky, did you ever notice that? And a lot of the really cool effects in some of my favorite Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Too bad his only directing effort was Hellraiser Bloodline, where he chose to be credited as Alan Smithy. See the film den I did on that movie if you want to know more about that. But anyway, working on Child's Play was how he met Catherine Hicks. They ended up getting married and have been ever since. They are disgustingly cute together. I guess that's about all I have to say about Child's Play. Still one of my favorite horror movies and probably always will be. If nothing else, it gave us Chucky. It'll be interesting to see how well Child's Play 2 will hold up after re-watching this one. No, I don't know when that video is coming out, just that it probably will eventually. That's it for now. See you next time.
What do you think?
You're a bloody puppet.
You're a wee little puppet man.